Well, good afternoon, everyone. We had a good discussion about wrapping up the next couple of months. I think there's a bipartisan and bicameral desire to get an omnibus appropriation bill. Senator Shelby gave an extensive report about the work that's going on there. I'll be talking to the Speaker about that as well. I think both sides think it would be better to do an omnibus appropriation bill before the end of the year rather than another short-term punt. So hopefully we can get there. On the possibility of another coronavirus package, it seems to me that with 6.9% unemployment, third quarter GDP growth of astonishing proportions, that even though we still have significant economic problems, we need to think about, if we're going to come up with a bipartisan package here, about what size is appropriate. It seems to me that snag that hung us up for months is still there. I don't think the current situation demands a multi-trillion-dollar package. So I think it should be highly targeted, very similar to what I put on the floor both in October and September. And of course, we're all excited about the Pfizer vaccine announcement yesterday. Senator Blunt knows an awful lot about that. I think the country is going to have a sense of relief that we may be able to finally see the light at the end of the tunnel with regard to this awful virus. In the meantime, we're all trying to emphasize, as all of us have here in the Senate since the 1st of May, until we get a significant number of Americans the vaccine, we're going to continue to wear our mask and practice social distancing and try to be a good example for the rest of the country.
Thank you, Leader, and I want to thank my colleagues again for the privilege of serving whip and look forward to working with this leadership team in the next Congress. We have a lot of work ahead of us when it comes to continuing to deal with the pandemic, COVID relief, and advancing a pro-jobs, pro-growth agenda for the American people. And I'm glad the election is behind us. I think we all are. I think there were at least 3 takeaways from the election. One was that there was not a blue wave. There wasn't even a blue ripple. I think that the election results made it clear that a lot of what the Democrats, pollsters, folks in the media were suggesting was going to happen did not happen at all. Secondly, it was a rejection of the far-left Schumer, Pelosi, AOC agenda. And third, if you look at what happened with not a single Republican losing a House race, actually gaining seats in the House of Representatives, not a single state legislature flipping, in fact, Republicans gaining ground in the state legislatures. And I'm quite confident that after Georgia, we are going to be in the majority here in the United States Senate. It really was a validation of the things that the Republican majority and the Republican Party are doing to try and advance and further the interests of the American people. So having taken all that into perspective, I think now we have an opportunity to move forward. The presidential race will be resolved at some point, but there's a lot of work that we have to do for the American people. And I look forward to working with our team, with our members, hopefully with Democrats who decide that they want to work with us now that it's been made clear that what they were trying to put forward is not what the American people want to see happen here, that we can get some good things done, that we can deal with the ongoing crisis in front of us with respect to the pandemic before the end of the year, fund the government, hopefully get a defense authorization bill done, and then tee some things up to get to work next year for the American people.
Well, Leader, thanks for mentioning the vaccines. I do think that now we're beyond the election, that a lot of the skepticism that people have had about the vaccine effort will go away. Once people look seriously at this, I think they're going to see that, frankly, the administration and the Congress providing $18 billion to invest in vaccines and therapeutics, and about $12.5 billion of that into vaccines, rewrote the chapter of the pandemic book on how you do this. We're at least a year ahead of where anybody would have thought we would have been in February or March of this year. Pfizer was a partner, a little different partner. Every one of these partnerships is a little bit different. The Pfizer deal was, we're confident in our vaccine. We're sure we're going to get there. If you'll guarantee the federal government will distribute and you'll buy $2 billion worth of it, that's the deal with us. AstraZeneca, Moderna, a little bit differently. But all of these companies, plus about 3 more, are all making vaccines as they get near the end of the trial period. So there'll be several million copies of any of these vaccines available on day one. And once you get that system started, it begins to produce vaccines pretty quickly. I think the distribution effort has been well thought out. The states have all submitted a plan. Hopefully the states will all respond to the proposal of how the vaccine would be allocated to healthcare workers and first responders first, people most in danger of having the worst results if they got the virus. Nursing homes would be a big group in that. And then the essential employees of the country, the school bus drivers, the teachers, the daycare center workers, the grocery store clerk, the food processing employee, people who are in a lot of contact with other people. If they can't get it, they can't give it to you. So every day, as you take these groups off the danger zone of the vaccine, not only they get safer, but everybody else gets safer. And by the time you get to the end of those groups, you've had about 50% of the American population would have had the ability to have the vaccine, and then we'll see what happens with everybody else. And on those companies that we thought had a better chance of being successful than not, and they're not successful, the American taxpayers are going to lose a little money on that. And in fact, if we didn't have a failure here, we weren't trying hard enough. We weren't pushing the envelope for enough. Remember, all these vaccines will be a little bit different from any of the others, and they're all being produced irrespective of what's happening anywhere else. So this is really big news. I, again, hope as we now move beyond the election discussion to a real pandemic response discussion, that people are going to appreciate what's really happened, both what the administration did and I'd suggest most importantly what the Congress was willing to appropriate money for.
Just a few things this afternoon. Coming through this last election cycle, which was very difficult for so many, we actually saw some pretty incredible gains by conservative women. And what we could say is this was the year for the GOP women. We picked up seats in the House, and we are also gaining another woman in our Republican conference, Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming. So it has been a really exciting year, and one where we hope that young conservative women will take a look of the makeup of Congress and determine that there is opportunity out there for them as well. So very exciting stuff going on. Second, of course, as the leader mentioned, hopefully we can get a COVID-19 recovery package. I think that's important. It's something that I continue to hear even while I was on the campaign trail, how Iowans really hoped we could step up and get a targeted relief bill done. There are still so many people that are hurting out across the nation, and we would love to provide them relief. So we're hopeful that Speaker Pelosi will get her caucus together, come up to the table and actually work with us on these efforts. And then finally, folks, tomorrow is Veterans Day. And this, of course, is an important day for me, but I would like to remind all Iowans and all Americans to please say thank you to a veteran, someone who has worn our nation's uniform in the armed services, and thank them for continuing to contribute to the great free society that we have in the most incredible nation on the face of the planet. Thank you.
Leader McConnell. Leader McConnell, this is the third or fourth time that the president has alleged election fraud without proof. He did it during the 2016 primaries, he did it after the 2016 general election, and he's doing it now. Why do you continue to indulge him?
Well, what I'm going to do here in the Senate is concentrate on the business that we have left to do, which I mentioned a while ago. An omnibus appropriation bill, maybe another coronavirus package, and let the presidential election go through the various stages that it goes through under the Constitution. There will be apparently litigation. Those cases will be decided. And then the Electoral College will meet. And then we'll have the inauguration. But I am going to concentrate on what we are trying to do here in the remainder of this Congress.
Was there any fraud in your Senate race or any Senate race that you know of?
I'm sorry?
Was there any fraud in your Senate race or any Senate race that you know of?
I don't know. At the risk of bragging, it wasn't very close.
The bipartisan 9/11 report said that the abbreviated transition period after the 2004 Bush fight contributed to the lack of security preparedness before 9/11. Shouldn't the GSA sign off on the requisite paperwork now to let the transition begin and avoid a similar crisis?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have an interrupted transition to whoever is the next administration. I think we ought to quit all the hand-wringing and not act like this is extraordinary. We're going to get through this period, and we'll swear in the winner on January the 20th, 2021, just like we have every 4 years since 1793.